Aloha, I'm Daryl Huff here at Hawaii News Now with our political analyst, Colin Moore, who is also a professor of political science and a variety of other things at the University of Hawaii. We're going to be going through these ballot questions that are causing a lot of confusion for folks when they open their ballots at home and go, well, what's this all about? And we're going to start with the state constitutional amendments that are on everybody's ballot, and then we'll go through county by county. Let's start with question number 1 on everybody's ballot. Shall the state constitution be amended to repeal the legislature's authority to reserve marriage to opposite sex couples? This is confusing because everybody thought we were done with this issue.
That's right. It's written in a little bit of a confusing way. I've heard some folks worry that, is this some sort of a trick? Well, it's not a trick, but I do understand why folks would think that this was settled a long time ago. Of course, in 2015, the Supreme Court ruled and same-sex marriage became legal throughout the country. So this really goes back to something that happened here, Hawaii, historically. And one idea to think about the amendment is to remove something that we put in our Constitution back in '98. So if you might remember, in 1993, the Hawaii Supreme Court recognized the right of same-sex couples to marry.
And it just freaked everybody out.
It did. I mean, it was a very different time socially. And so in 1998, Hawaii voters passed a constitutional amendment that gave the state legislature the right to reserve marriage to opposite-sex couples.
And then subsequent to that, the U.S. Supreme Court and the Hawaii legislature all agreed that same-sex marriage is just fine. It's now, we would think, settled law, and this wouldn't change that.
This wouldn't change anything about that. What it would remove is that amendment that gives the legislature the ability to make that determination. So one way to think about this is if the makeup of the Supreme Court changed, if they reversed that decision, then of course the Hawaii state legislature could decide that same-sex marriage is no longer legal. This removes that ability of the legislature to do that, so it makes same-sex marriage even more secure here in Hawaii.
You'd have to actually change the Constitution again in order to ban same-sex marriage, although I have talked to advocates for or people against same-sex marriage who say, let's leave that in there just in case that happens, even if it's 20, 25 years along the way. So
sure, that's right.
This does bring up the issue again of same-sex marriage, has some people talking about it once again.
And I think for a lot of the advocates, they really see this as an important symbol. If we can remove this, we remove what they might consider a stain on our Constitution.
Okay, question number 2, also a statewide constitutional amendment. I'm not even going to try and read this whole thing because it is really long. It is literally the longest ballot question I've ever seen. And it basically says, shall the Constitution be changed to basically regularize or standardize the way judges are confirmed, district judges are confirmed. Right now, district judges have a slightly different way of being appointed and confirmed. And I talked to a senator about it who says this is basically to make things more efficient.
To make things more efficient and more consistent. So we have a somewhat complicated process of appointing judges, a little bit different between district judges and the other judges. All these names come from the Judicial Selection Commission, which is a commission made up mainly of lawyers, but some other folks as well. They give a list of names to the governor for the higher court judges and to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court for the district court judges. The first thing this would do is to make that process consistent, so the chief judge would receive the same number of names the governor does.
What I was told by Senator Carl Rhodes, who basically wrote this amendment, is that right now the requirement is that the Judicial Selection Commission give the Chief Justice at least 6 names. And he said, that's hard to find 6 people who want to be a district court judge at the same time, let alone the many, many positions the CJ has to fill. And so this would make it so between 4 and 6 names, which is a more manageable number, and will actually make that part of the process a little bit easier.
That's right. And so the second thing this does is it makes consistent the way the Senate confirms these judicial nominees. So right now, the Senate gets a name from the governor or from the Chief Justice. They have 30 days to act. If they say yes, of course, the nominee is confirmed. If they say no, it goes back, and the chief judge or the governor has to come up with another name. What the different part here is what happens when the Senate doesn't act for either set of judges. So For the higher court judges, if the Senate doesn't act, if they don't confirm or deny, then those judges, the nominee automatically is appointed to the court. For the district court judge, if they don't act, it goes back to the Judicial Selection Commission, and they make that determination. And so what this does is make this process more consistent. And for senators on this committee, there's a lot more district court judges than there are for the higher court judges, so they have to meet many times off session.
And actually what it was explained to me is that if there's only one nominee and they can't get, they have to call in the whole state Senate to vote on one nominee in the off season. And so this way the person would automatically become a judge for the full 6-year term, and they're done with it. And presumably the senators who are in charge of this confirmation probably would have an opportunity to vet the person to a certain extent. If there was a problem,
they would still be able to meet and reject that nominee. Exactly. Okay. It's just what happens if they don't meet. Yeah.
Okay, so that takes care of the 2 state constitutional amendments, and we'll be talking next about the charter amendments in each county.